I think there are also a ton of other factors for e-commerce businesses that are super relevant because there's a lot less competition for advertising dollars. There's a lot more opportunity for growth right now. People aren't spending money on other categories, so they have a lot more opportunity to be spending in the pet space. They're not going to PetSmart, obviously, because they can't. So online businesses are getting a boom in the product space.
I think we are going to see people spend more time and money on services in the future because they are spending more time with their animals and realizing kind of sometimes how bored their animal may be, or spending more, or confronting issues like they have an anxiety condition or other issue. They are more likely to notice it or more likely to have a lot of touch points on it. So they're more likely to want to take care of it.
You know, the way to think about it is the percentage of households with dogs is going to increase. You know, prior to this, there were, let's just say, a theoretical, you know, percentage of households who would like to have had a dog, but didn't. And for various reasons, whether it's time, whether it's whatever it might be, the last 3 months has changed that dynamic, which has therefore unlocked the opportunity for that potential for those households who wanted a dog to now have a dog. You know, as we kind of go back to what we thought of as normal prior to coronavirus, you know, the factors that were preventing people may start to come back in. But there's a lot of kind of glue that came undone over the last 3 months that we don't really see being put back together.
One of the things we really think about a lot is pet parent guilt. Like, people feel really guilty leaving their dog behind while they're at work for 10 hours a day. They feel really bad when their dog eats poor quality food. They feel really bad when their dog feels sick. They feel bad when their dog can't go to the bathroom. Like, there's just all this guilt that you drive when you have a dog, right? Like, I think everyone can relate to that. And so you're looking for solutions to remove that guilt that are really seamless. I think historically it has not been seamless to remove guilt as a pet parent, right? Like, the only person that can remove guilt for you was Petco or PetSmart. And it was like, I call it the great unbundling of the store, but it used to do pet adoption, daycare, boarding, grooming, food, treats, like everything was in this box. And like, no one wants to go to that box anymore, but they still have to. And so what you're seeing is this great unbundling and these brands starting to come out, and people now have like a really seamless choice on how to remove the guilt associated with these core competencies.
So I think overall there's a completely new trend of retail, right? That if you're offering a traditional service in the traditional way, the old way of doing things, I don't know if that's going to be sustainable for this new work from home kind of norm. Right. So I think whether that's creating more flexible memberships, if it's providing a positive member experience, whatever that is, if someone's coming into a physical location, it's because they cannot get that experience or service or product online, or else they're going to go to Chewy, or else they're going to go to some of these other services. So I think it's to look at it, what's going on within retail, and to see if you can meet your users' needs that way.
While there were 4 or 5 players right out of the gate on the dog side of things, on the cat side, you know, there's a company called Smalls. There's not many other, you know, truly fresh options. There's Nom Nom that's kind of covered both pet and both pets, but you know, a lot of the other, you know, players have remained kind of loyal to dogs. And I think there is a room for a dedicated cat brand, but I think it emphasizes that 1, cats eat a lot less, 2, cats are pickier, and 3, cats need more SKUs and just more product diversity in order to satisfy their palates.
You know, on the dog side, there's a lot of opportunity for just being very innovative on the human grade side when it comes to treats, supplements, occupational chews. I think there are a lot of natural bolt-ons that you know companies like PetPlate are looking at in order to kind of drive AOV and additional purchase volume from their customers. I think cat has a lot of that actually already baked in, whether it's from like the litter, etc. And I just wonder how much, you know, all of that scales, you know, across like the different species. So I think a lot of that's going to be interesting. And
what's not really been cracked yet in the space is true personalization on the food side. You know, you have Royal Canin, which is probably the largest brand in the world today, doing 3.5 billion in revenue, and they do have formulation by breed and certain species, but it goes on to like the top maybe 10, 15. doesn't really go beyond that. And I think that Renaldo brings a really good point, because we look at this in the veterinary space with Pumpkin, and we have a partnership with Zoetis, so we do a lot of work in diagnostics. And we've, I've talked to the CEO of Embark. They do like DNA testing on pets, and we have access to a genomic product here at Pumpkin. And I think that's the part that becomes interesting, is like when you understand really truly the genetic, not just like, oh, you're guessing you're a mixed breed, like kind of what we do on our surveys today on the intake form at Ollie and some other player, but like truly actually have a data from a DNA test like Embark, and then mixing that to a genomic database so that you can actually look at the prediction of what kind of disease or allergies your pet, dog, and cat can have, and then start to custom tailor a formulation that mirror what it is and actually start to really work around.
We believe that there's an opportunity to use the body's own healing powers, that's the stem cells that you're born with, to actually not just treat these disorders, which there's tons of evidence that it does, but actually to prevent the disorders. So to me, step one is let's treat arthritis with something that addresses the underlying disease, not just the symptoms. And step two is let's prevent arthritis from coming in the first place. And step three is, well, when you start preventing these diseases, what happens? You start living longer. And I think we'll see dogs start adding 1, 2, 3, 4 years of life.
But I actually think this is a systemic, and I would argue existential problem for U.S. pet care. Veterinarians aren't paid enough for the services they provide to the society that we operate in. And their debt loads are really crushing, and there are other mental health challenges that I think about a lot. My wife's a therapist, and for anyone who's looked at mental health and veterinary practices, it's a really challenging moment at this time. So those salaries should go up, but there is no employer-backed or government-backed insurance system.
What I see happening over time is that telehealth services will essentially address, for, if you think of the spectrum of care, the most basic needs for a pet parent. And you're then in this realm where actually you're then better leveraging the veterinary community and the veterinary ecosystem in the brick and mortar world to be able to deliver a care that is of higher value and less cost intensive for them to deliver.